Hey, aloha. This is Lock and Load, and I'm going to be reading this letter and just discussing briefly the historical context of uh, the UK Bill of Rights Act. And this is a letter on the Firearms Commission. Well, there's a law commission that is reviewing all firearms laws and consolidating them. And so, because the Bill of Rights Act was the predecessor to uh, the Bill of Rights. I'm writing this letter, and I'm just going to go over the act and some of the historical context. And I was up late the other night. Uh, somebody with somebody, Smeggy, and we did a lot of research, and it was extensive. So without any further delay, I'm just going to read my letter. Also, because Ron Swanson uh, kind of dared me to write a letter to the UK law commissioner. So this is the draft, and if anybody has any input or suggestions or questions, I posted it on the main page, and it's also on the external. So without further ado, okay, um, it to the Firearms Law Commissioner, lawcommission.gsi.gov.uk. To honorable law commissioners regarding UK firearms reform slash historical scope and context. Your honors, this letter is to address the upcoming reform of existing UK firearm law, scoping consultation paper 224, and ongoing violations of the 1688-89 Bill of Rights Act, which specifically declared disarming Protestants, an act that, quote, endeavors to subvert and extirpate the Protestant religion and the laws and liberties of this kingdom, unquote. The Bill of Rights Act grants certain ancient rights and liberties that have, in fact, been diminished and abolished by Parliament by the very laws the Honorable Law Commissioners propose to consolidate. That the pretended power of the Parliament to suspend certain ancient rights and liberties granted by the Bill of Rights Act is illegal. That the pretended power to enact laws contravening the Bill of Rights Act, as it hath been assumed and exercised of late, is illegal. Therefore, any government procedure or code undermining certain ancient rights and liberties is an attack on the Bill of Rights Act and an attack on the people of the United Kingdom, whose ancient rights and liberties are essential to human dignity and moral worth. And this is basically language right out of the act. Anyway, continuing, the Bill of Rights Act supersedes the Statute of Northampton. The Statute of Northampton, that was Edward's King Edward's Act, and this is what was referred to in most of all the Brady peoples, whatever that is, to in the Drake case, and it's always cited in their filings. And I'll deal with the historical context later. Continuing, in the enforcement of these firearm bans, how often have the innocent been brought to the bar and condemned for merely exercising the very ancient rights and liberties granted by the Bill of Rights Act? Were not the North American colonies lost when British soldiers tried to seize arms and powders from the colonists? In practical effect, do the good and loyal subjects and citizens of the crowns have the right to live as free men if they are denied the implements required to defend that life? In practical effect, the law commissioners are to be the archons in charge of future firearm law for the express purpose of preventing future crimes as yet uncommitted by anyone. So consider then the first known weapon control laws. And in 593 BC, Solon was elected chief archon of Athens, and Solon law reforms included the first recorded arms control law banning armor being worn in the city-state of Athens. In case you're wondering, Leonidas fighting the Persians, that was later, like in 380 or 480. Anyway, continuing. Other reforms of Solon included the cancellation of all debts, prohibition on a debtor's person or family being used as security for a loan, release of all Athenian slaves. They didn't say anything about the other slaves. And by some accounts, the democratization of sexuality by the public funding of brothels. It's probably why Germany doesn't want to pay Greek debt. Also codified, and that wasn't in the letter, also codified the disenfranchisement of any citizen who might refuse to take up arms of civil strife, in times of civil strife, a measure that was intended to counteract dangerous levels of political apathy. How indeed can a citizen subject to the crown take up arms in defense of the crown without said arms and without benefit of practice and training thereof? And I posit if the Spanish Armada of 1588 did not founder in the Channel and North Sea, but were able to land 19,000 Spanish cavalry, sword, and archers, along with 17,000 French soldiers, would the British populace of the modern day, limited to 22 rimfire, be capable to repel even such an ancient force when, in the Battle of Cerignola, 1503, 1,000 Spanish arquebusiers wielding 66 caliber arquebus matchlocks. I'm going to have a link of what those things look like. They're basically mounted on a very long bipod. So wielding 66 caliber arquebus matchlocks were required to repel and defeat the French cavalry. In modern day, inexpensive soft body armor renders 22 rimfire ineffective. The British military is not the global superpower it once was. However, good and loyal subjects and citizens of the crown will invariably rise to defend it if the rights and liberties guaranteed by the Bill of Rights Act be restored. And quote it to finish, I have this quote from Blackstone. Quote, the protection of the liberty of Britain is a duty which they owe to themselves, who enjoy it, to their ancestors who transmitted it down, and to their posterity, who will claim it at their hands, this the best birthright and noblest inheritance of mankind. And that's Sir William Blackstone, Commentaries on the Law, Book 4, Chapter 33. Respectfully submitted. So I'm going to see if there's any comments, and I'm just going to go over some of this history really quick. And I want to share this. NRA Museum has a few pictures of a matchlock too that I thought were pretty cool. I'm going to screen share that. Assuming I can find the freaking screen share button. All right. There it is. All right, so this is a matchlock musket. I hope you guys can see it. And this was built, this is a 1530. And basically, in the battle that I mentioned, which I'm sure I will mispronounce because it's an Italian town, where Spanish fought French cavalry. This is a musket, arquebus matchlock, about 66 caliber, and it took us a while to figure that out. But most of the matchlocks were between 50 and 70 something. So, and here's a couple close-up pictures of these matchlocks. Just go through them real quick. So yeah, the NRA Museum has actually the Spanish matchlock. And we're going to go to the law. So basically, the Bill of Rights Act, 1688, was the predecessor to the Bill of Rights, but it really only had two rights, but they were only for Protestants, because the rights for freedom of speech and the right to bear arms. Because what had happened was, this was right after the the Glorious Revolution. And what that was is King James put in the Catholic Church as the Church of England, and they disarmed all the Protestants and started killing them. And well, basically what happened was he couldn't get any money out of Parliament. It's like, they wouldn't give him any money for anything. So he had to provide for his own money. That's by, and basically he wound up inviting like 7 armies of foreign countries to invade Britain because the Parliament wouldn't do what he wanted. And so, what the Bill of Rights Act was uh, when he lost, the King James had lost, he fled Britain, and they had to have a new king, and so they put William and Mary in charge. And what mostly it was an act to redefine um, the oath that the king would swear, which was, instead of to obey the laws of God as determined by kings, it would be to obey the statutes of Parliament and swear an oath, there too. So um, that's where the Bill of Rights came from, was this act, the Bill of Rights Act. And so uh, and so this is 1689, after the Glorious Revolution. And so it mostly dealt with the succession of putting William and Mary as dual monarchs. But this was after Oliver Cromwell and all that stuff. So basically, this was a Protestant versus Catholic thing, and they didn't want to. They didn't want to be able to disarm the Protestants. And looking at, there's a page here which I'll put in the link that you can see. Let me get out of the screen share real quick. Stop. Right. So basically what happened was, I need to go over my letter from start to finish because there's a few historical points that a lot of people won't be familiar with. So the Bill of Rights Act supersedes the Statute of Northampton. Right. So that was basically that's what the Brady campaign always cites, the Statute of Northampton. And that was King Edward. And you could just Google the Statute of Northampton, and you'll find a printout of it. But let me see if I'll probably have to do that just so I don't remember the language from heart. Asses of Northampton, Borough of Northampton. Oh boy. The English Civil War. All right. See, Oliver Cromwell was 1650s. Well, I'll tell you what, let me put this link up from Calguns first while I dig up the Statute of Northampton. And this is the all the acts after World War I that basically disarmed the British people. And this is what they proposed to consolidate. Let me put that in, if I can find my way back to my channel. All right, so that's calguns.net, Calgun Forum, show thread. I'll put that down there, but it's in the channel, Hawaii V Squad channel, and they have all kinds of cool stuff on calguns.net. Anyway, so the Firearms Act of 1920 made it illegal to possess these weapons without first obtaining a certificate from the police registering each firearm. That was after World War I. They started requiring permits, certificates from the police. 1936-37, the Firearms Acts of 1936-37 placed additional controls on fully automatic, restricting them to the armed forces and police. The Prevention of Crime Act in 1953 prohibited the carrying of offensive weapons without lawful authority or reasonable excuse. A major and true right of a citizen or subject was dismantled at this point. So you needed a reasonable excuse or authority as a result of the Crime Act of 1953. The Criminal Justice Act of 1967 was passed, which introduced shotgun certificates. The Firearms Act of 1968 introduced the concept of compulsory security for rifles and pistols and incorporated shotgun certificate, the first outlined in the Criminal Justice Act of 1967. In 1987, there were the Hungerford killings, and that's when centerfire rifles, I think that's when the centerfire rifle was banned. This, somebody killed a few people and they banned centerfires, I think. Let's see. The government passes the Firearms Act Amendment of 1988. So that's when they see, without a breath of protest, vast amounts of semi-auto rifles are seized, destroyed, and eliminated from the private citizen's hands. Any possibility of a citizen's defense force or organization is eliminated. Handguns are left alone, despite Ryan using one to kill as well as the assault rifle he had. All right, so I guess that was the Hungerford killings. 1996, another killing of school children. The perpetrator was Thomas Hamilton, and the inquiry of what actually happened and how he did it was sealed. And so, without any facts, they passed another Firearms Control Act. Firearms Amendment Act of 1997 effectively banned everything, all but 22 pistols. This effectively banned the private possession of all modern pistols, even for competitive shooting purposes, save 22. Even antique revolvers of 100 years old or more were affected by this draconian move, as police considered anything in available caliber to be covered. Even the Britain's legendary Webley .455 fell under this despicable act. So gun clubs are now expected to vet and establish probationary measures against all newcomers, essentially policing citizens wanting to own Section 1 firearms. And many gun clubs closed due to the pistol prohibitions. So to actually become a full gun club member, you have to conform to extra rules, regulation, policies of a home office approved gun club. So the Firearms Amendment Act number 2, because that wasn't good enough for the gun grabbers, Tony Blair enacts the Firearms Act number 2 of 1997. So this means now even 22 pistols that were excluded by Tory gun prohibitions are now banned as well. So that's what happened in Britain. And what was really just interesting is this, that was the basis. That it was an act, not a bill. But that act, the Bill of Rights Act, that was the basis for the First and Second Amendment, and that was in 1688 or 89. And it wasn't really even. They had to have that kind of an act because they had to. It was mainly dealing with the new oath that the new king and queen had to swear allegiance to follow the statutes of Parliament, and so because they're it just seems to me that even though the act was originally focused on protecting the rights of Protestants, because the previous king who tried to get foreign armies to invade England because he couldn't get any money out of the Parliament, he had made the Catholic Church, the official Church of England, and they disarmed all the Protestants, because there was, the Protestants considered the Catholic superstitious old fools, and sure the Catholics didn't think much of the Protestants, but stupid crap like that. So, and considering the new left-wing leader of the Labour Party that they just elected, Jeremy Corbyn, wants to leave NATO and declare Hezbollah and Hamas friends, and pretty much, dismantle the armed forces, even though they actually don't even have a carrier yet. That's anyway. I won't get into the Navy, but uh, it was pretty cool when we were researching the arc. It took us a while to find a 66 caliber musket, and to figure out that 66 calibers, the arquebus matchlock, um, was the rifle. But I'm gonna just look real quickly in the chat, see if there's any questions about this history. And I think I pretty much covered everything that I researched. And if anybody has any suggestions on this letter, right now it's the draft letter, and I have until the 21st to send it. So I'd really be interested if anybody from gun channels or anybody from the bushcraft over on Ron Swanson's channel at Fox Company Prepping have anything to say on this one, because he pretty much dared me to write a letter to the UK guy. I don't think I'll sign it Hawaii Volcano Squad, but I will wait, I think 24 or 48 hours before I send it. Now, if I can only find my way back to my own page. Oh, here it is. Yeah. All right. Wait, you can't see it in there? I linked it. Yes, Smedgy helped with the research. Let's see. I'll put one more link to the gun chat, the actual live chat in there, in case he wants to come in and throw in his 2 cents. 1 second. So yeah, the letter is in the on the main page, where it says posts from members. I linked my letter, and I haven't sent it yet. I'm interested if anybody from gun channels has any input, and I want to hear what they say from the UK. So I'm going to wait one day. I have until the 21st. Yeah, the Liberals just took over in Australia, didn't they? Moon, they just the Tony Abbott's out. Alex Skokiller, you just need to click on the play link on the Firearms. It says UK Firearms with a little picture of my Tavor up in there. It's the video. I think you should be able to see it. All right. And yeah, so basically, yeah, the British have a new left-wing lunatic, So I was basically what started just my research into this was researching the Drake versus Juragin case in DC. And, I was reading the briefs, and the Brady campaign, cites the letter of, the Statute of Northampton, which is King Edward. And because it's cited all the time. So let me just put a link to that one too. Let me just look it up on Wikipedia. I actually had some actual quotes of it. I don't know if I could find it. Statute. Right, naturally, instead of actually just listing it, they just list a bunch of crap about it. Interpretations, ordinances. Basically, what it said was you can't, shoot. There was a big crime wave, I guess, in 1300 or whatever. I mean, this is the 1300 law that they cite from the 1300s, and so I thought, you had to go back to the very first gun law. I mean, it's there's a face of Ceylon from 590 BC, because Greece was the birthplace of democracy. There's in the House of Representatives, there's a kind of like a faceplate of the Salon person from Athens, and anyway, I'm gonna just go through my bookmarks here real quick, and Salon Archons, the Amicuri brief of the Brady campaign. You have to read like all the enemy propaganda and shit that they cite. In case you didn't know who Sir William Blackstone was, he was basically the guy who was, he basically wrote the commentaries on laws of England, which all lawyers study. He lived, let's see, 1723 to 1780. But I think the most famous thing that you would have heard was basically, when they paraphrased his law, I think Tom Jefferson paraphrased his axiom that it's better to free one guilty person than convict 10 innocent people. That was Blackstone's ratio. Let's see how he put it. Oh, John Adams made that quote, but it was based on Blackstone's quote that it's better that 10 guilty persons escape than one innocent suffer. So that was put into, I guess, more Americanese by John Adams. So that's Blackstone's ratio, and you've probably heard that, the maxim of British law. And so I went through studying Blackstone's and to find the end quote for the letter, and I could read that he's got a lot of stuff, and so I didn't read it all, but thankfully I found a page with bookmark, or well, not bookmarks, but like a table of contents, and you could go through it all. Anyway, I think that pretty much covers everything. Unless you just want to talk about the Glorious Revolution, or William and Mary. William was the Prince of Orange, basically, and back to the Glorious Revolution, the Convention and Bill of Rights, right? So. Right, the struggle on the Bill of Rights. I had these pages up. I think I bookmarked them. Wait, let me check my damn bookmarks. I only have 1 million freaking bookmarks. And we have these old pictures of Spanish with an arquebus rifle. These old sketches. I'll just end it with this sketch, I think. Let me just screen share it before I get it out of here. I'm going to have to check the externals too on YouTube. I don't think I launched it. Sorry if I'm ignoring you out there, but I had most of my pages from 3 days or 4 days worth of research up on this. So I don't think I could get to the external YouTubes. I apologize for that one, but let's screen share this page. Let's see. Arquebuses and muskets in theory. Yeah, 66 caliber. So basically, you can see those bipods that they, rested them on, and the French cavalry charged at them, and there were 1,000 of them. They didn't wait for the French cavalry didn't wait for reinforcements. They just were badly led, which helped to their losing the battle. If you just send the cavalry without support, and there were pikemen and arquebuses or whatever. These old freaking matchlocks. And I do like the baggy pants, man. So I look forward to responses. I'll check one more time for questions, and I'm interested to see what anybody from the UK says before I send this letter. I want to get it under the deadline, which is the 21st. And so thanks everybody for listening to this. It really was interesting. I didn't know that the basis for the Bill of Rights was the English Bill of Rights, because it's that only applied to Protestants back then. But it seems that it should apply to everybody. And again, the reason that they put that in was because the war was basically between Protestants and Catholics and the Pope, and they, they got, whenever back then, when people were separating from church and state, the Pope sanctioned all the marriages, all the wars, for all the Catholics, and because they were Protestant, you can get the Pope to sanction a war against Protestants pretty easily. The Catholic Pope, anyway. So people were, when people came to America, they were fleeing that bullshit. So anyway, let's make it back to my channel if possible, and one last check for questions or anything else, and I'll close it out. Oh, Sam Adams. Yeah, I still have my. The problem with quotes on the internet is you can't verify them. John Adams. That's a great quote. You'd be lucky if you can find the quote that I looked up last week on the internet. But anyway, I wonder how many people, I know how many in America, if they were rewriting all the gun laws, how many millions of emails and faxes and letters they would get. And I know in Britain, that they probably have the apathy problem that there, or that we don't care, or we don't need guns, or we don't like guns, or, anyway, thanks for listening to this chat. I look forward to anybody's comments or suggestions on my letter before I send it. And this has been a Hawaii Volcano Squad Second Amendment, kind of a, what does Spike Lee call his films? Joint, right? So see, you can have a joint and a Sam Adams beer and not break the law. It's Hawaii Volcano Squad, and I'm gone. If I can find the off button. Yeah, here it is. Aloha.